Hi and welcome to the We Need a Rose podcast, and I'm sure in 1985 plutonium was available in every corner drugstore, but in 1955 it's a little harder to come by. So David, what sonic shit sandwich are you going to share with us today?
Well mate, I had a really good week this week, so I went to the doctor's and he prescribed me a prescription for daily sex. And I was well happy with that, until I got home and Natasha insists it's for dyslexia.
Right, well I can only apologise to our listeners and our guests for that oral atrocity. That's right, you heard me say guest, and we are very happy to have on the podcast our first ever guest, and that is Mr Adam Elliot. Now, myself, David and Adam all work in the media industry, and we all actually work in the same building. So, of course, once we all got talking films, that was pretty much it. So, just to put you on the spot immediately, Adam, what is your favourite horror film of all time and why?
Good question. Hello, lads. I'm going to say... Oh, that is ridiculously tough and I think quite an unfair question. But I'm going to say it's either The Thing or They Live. So, although They Live isn't really hard, I'm going to go The Thing.
What about Bone Tomahawk?
Bone Tomahawk is up there with one of my favourites.
It's good.
It's not my favourite. But I'm going to go classic because I think if you have a favourite, I think it's because it's somehow you're kind of connected to it. So I'm going to go The Thing because it is the best horror in the world, I think.
Yeah, I can't actually argue with that. I mean, David, I'm not going to ask you because we already know from a few episodes ago that it was Scream for you. And yeah, I'm actually going to agree. I was going to say The Thing myself, which, do you know, bizarrely, I only just, when I was researching this pod, I actually discovered that The Thing itself was also inspired by Lovecraft's novella At the Mountains of Madness.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So there was even the whole Lovecraftian angle to that. So yeah. So for today's episode, we're going to take a look at the subgenre of cosmic horror. So, what is cosmic horror, you might ask? Well, for many of us, it's usually a film based on the work, but not exclusively, of H.P. Lovecraft and his Cthulhu mythos. Indeed, it can be argued that this is one of the first shared universes in fiction, and Lovecraft's idea of cosmicism is the idea that we are so unprepared and ill-equipped to handle what lies beyond that even a brief exposure to it will drive us mad. Many times these cosmic forces are neither good nor evil, they're just simply incomprehensible, and humanity is akin to an ant caught in a tornado. So what do you think the appeal of the genre and the stories are?
Go on, you want to talk about, because you were telling me how subjective you think of these.
So, I mean, it is. Oh God, hang on. I've just relaxed in my chair, but like I'm laying down, and I feel like I'm kind of going to be psychologically evaluated. In a way, I kind of feel that like cosmic horror, for me, cosmic horror is about like the end of everything, and it's about something that's so big, and it just makes you feel so small that there's nothing you can do about it. It's just coming, and that is that. It's not even horror. It's like dread. I mean, if you read some of Lovecraftian stuff, I mean, it just fills you with dread. Not even necessarily horror, not gore, not sort of blood curdling stuff. It is just utter dread, and I think it's just knowing that there's nothing. And that, I think, I mean, there's a quote actually from him, which if I can't actually remember, it's like. I did have it written down, but there's a quote from Lovecraft, which is, I think, here you go, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. And I think that is kind of what it is. It's outside of our universe, outside our galaxy, in the cosmos. We don't know what's there, and that's the scariest thing of all. So I kind of feel that that's what cosmic horror is, really. What do you think? Is that...
Yeah. Would I be wrong in saying that it's not necessarily the fear of like something like death, because death's
right. It's like it's almost like, so that is where I think some films that are classed as cosmic horror cross over to what I might consider, and I don't know, I'm a complete novice at this, but existential horror. So like existential is like the fear of the end of your personal existence, where cosmic horror is the fear and the end of all existence and everything. So I think it's personal versus the cosmos is my understanding.
That fear that you get deep within yourself of hopelessness,
absolutely,
of just sheer dread of not understanding or knowing, or even what your own existence is.
Absolutely.
What is your existence? What is the purpose of life and reality?
Yeah. Well,
is it the fear of not understanding?
Well, I mean, actually, I think so. That is existentialism, and again, I'm a complete novice at this, and I've only really touched on it. But like, if you look at the existentialism movement, which is like what Nietzsche, Jean-Paul Sartre, and all that. I mean, that's some heavy stuff. That's existentialism. But existentialist or existential dread is the end of self, and that's personal. But cosmic is, like I was saying, that's like this horrible gut feeling that you can do. There's nothing you can do. It's inevitable, and that I think is touched on things like, the colour out of space and things like that. That's a cosmic horror. Where I think some films, like, I mean, if you take The Thing, I think that's more of an existential horror. Okay. But again, I find it all very subjective anyway, really.
Yeah, I think you can argue all these different films we're going to go through, they could easily fit into any of these different sub-boxes. I mean, I think when it comes to... I mean, the thing with Lovecraft's and cosmic horror is these films, I mean, his stories, they're over 100 years old now. And yet they're still continuously, I mean, even more recently, in the last sort of, I mean, you can look at world events for why these type of films are much more prevalent, because I think people want to think, they want to believe in that there is something bigger than us all out there. And like they find that idea exciting, enticing, but also terrifying. I mean, it's like imagining you finding out you're the equivalent of an ant, in the grand scheme of things, and your existence could be wiped out in seconds, like someone standing on you, without it even being a deliberate action.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, films like The Void, it's about like the vastness and the scale of the universe and how small we are compared to it. But then you can also say, for me, Hellraiser is kind of like that as well. Like Event Horizon as well. It just reminds you of just how completely and utterly inconsequential we are, and that is almost the dread of cosmic horror, I think. Anyway,
have you guys ever seen that? It's just like a YouTube clip of showing you like size scales in the universe. So it starts with the moon, and then it goes to Earth, and then you've got like Venus, and then Saturn, and then it goes to the sun, and then it's the next sun, and then the next sun, and everything just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And you realise just how
utterly
minute and.
Yeah, I think that would break my bane a little bit.
Yeah, no,
does.
It does. It massive, and that I think is because I think really it comes down to understanding. You start to get an understanding of what you don't understand, and that is fear. Again, that's leaning on what Lovecraft actually said about fear of the unknown. So I mean,
from my point of view, the only kind of thing I can even link to in my personal life from that was when I was when I used to work on ships. I was working. We were crossing over in Asia, and we were going over the Mariana Trench. And you got the guy on board saying, "Oh, by the way, if the ship sank at this point, this is the deepest point on Earth, and they would never find us or the ship." And also, it was at that point you're thinking, you just realise how tiny the ship is, and despite it holding thousands and thousands of people, that you're just this tiny speck right there. And also, just the fact that at that point, I'm thinking, it would take me 2.5 days to get home from where I am right at the minute. And that sense of being away from home and being away from safety, and in such a potentially dangerous place. I just remember that when we were crossing it, I was like, holy shit, man, we're like right in the middle of nowhere right now.
Would I be correct in saying that we know more about our universe and space than we do about the deepest depths of our oceans? Because we can't go there because the water pressure is just too... Yeah. So we know more about what's out there in terms of space and the universe, even though it is incredibly vast, than we do about our own planet in a lot of respects.
So in a way, you could say that if that fact is true, you could get a cosmic horror essentially that's underwater. So if you take...
That is essentially Cthulhu anyway, isn't it, really?
No, exactly. So I guess it is all super, super connected. But, if you take The Abyss... who directed The Abyss? You'd know, Neil, sorry.
Cameron. James Cameron.
Yeah, so if you take kind of that concept... And then obviously he adds aliens into it. Essentially, is that cosmic horror or does that become existential horror? And
I think it's more existential, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because the aliens are there to help us, not harmless.
Yeah, no,
But-
yeah, right. I mean, also, you've kind of got this thing about, there's probably a calculation you could do of like what horror films are Lovecraftian and which ones of those are cosmic and which ones of those are existential. Are some horrors existential but not Lovecraftian? And does that make it cosmic? Who knows? It's all really, thing. Oh, also, have you seen Netflix's Black Holes, The Edge of All We Know? That's a documentary.
No, I've seen it on there, but I haven't actually seen it yet.
Really good. There's It's a documentary about black holes, but there's a little bit of motion graphics in there that basically goes through what David was saying about just how small we are, and it just keeps travelling back and travelling back and travelling back, and before you know it, we're not even a speck. We're like not even visibly on it, and that's only half of what we know. In fact, we don't know even half of what we know. So yeah, it is very, very scary. So that's cosmic horror.
Equally, you could go the other direction, and you could get smaller and smaller and smaller, and because you split an atom open, and there's all this other. I'm not a scientist, but there's all this other stuff in there, and then they'll split that open, and they'll find something else that's even smaller and smaller.
There's actually this. I'll try and find it so you can link it, but there's a website with a scale, and it's a slidable scale that you can slide, and you can go one way and go, go out, and you can see the universe, but you can go the other way and go in, and it goes all the way down to atoms, into quarks, even down to string theory and how small things get. So actually, that would be quite interesting.
Is that what? Do you reckon that's where they got Quark from Deep Space Nine from?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, had to get a reference in. Yeah.
Spoilers? Where we're going, there are nothing but spoilers.
Okay, right, so I think let's get this show on the road. We've kind of established what we think it is, and we're still really not much clearer on the whole definitions of it, because there are a bunch depending on your own point of view. So the first film we're going to take a look at today is from the master, of course, Mr. John Carpenter, and it's 1994's In the Mouth of Madness. Now, this is one that myself and David, we've only just seen recently in prep for this podcast, and starring Sam Neill. It's clearly influenced by Lovecraft, because, the title is just a play on Mountains of Madness anyway. So in the film, we see Sam Neill's fraud investigator Trent searching for missing author Sutter Kane, with his mission to find the author and deliver his last missing book to the publisher. Neil begins to read the author's books, and before you know it, he's living in a fictional location of Hobbs End from the book. When we meet Kane, we realise that anyone who reads from his final book will go mad. Kane explains that the public's belief in his stories will free an ancient race of beings who will reclaim the Earth. Kane explains to Neil's character that he has no free will and will carry out his task of taking his final book and delivering it, which will bring about the end of the world. After some time loop shenanigans, Neil finally escapes back to reality, where he destroys the manuscript, but in quite a nice little twist, which is actually kind of similar to the one we have in Watchmen, he finds out none of it mattered and he actually delivered the manuscript months ago, and in fact the film's about to come out. Now, this takes us back to the beginning of the film with Trent in an asylum, and in a masterstroke of storytelling, we see him wander to a cinema to see himself starring in a film we've just watched, and he's sitting there with his popcorn, starts watching a film, laughs maniacally when he realises he was just a character in a book all along. David, what do you think?
Did you know that ending was not the scripted ending?
I did, yes, because apparently the budget was cut from, 15 million to 8 million, and they had to completely rewrite it.
Yeah, so that ending, which Carpenter added himself, which is probably the most, bleak.
The best bit of the film.
Yeah, best part of the film, definitely. Wasn't in the script. So in the script, we were going to follow the psychiatrist that was evaluating him. So we left Sam Neill's character in the asylum, and we followed the psychiatrist home. And he's seeing people read the book, and he's seeing like their eyes starting to turn, or they're all looking at him peculiar. And he goes home to his wife, and his wife's reading the book, and she just finishes it. He turns the light off, and her eyes are glowing, and it's I see it now, and it's beautiful. That's the scripted ending.
Really? Okay. So there was another ending as well. Yeah. So apparently the original ending that they was going to film was that Kane himself was going to tear himself in half like a page from a book, and we kind of have that bit, where you see the kind of vortex open up. But the idea was going to be that the black hole that opens up, it would actually swallow the whole town and then eventually the world. But they didn't have the budget to do that, so they had to rewrite it, and we ended up with the ending we got. Which, do you know what? That ending is so much better. I mean, it's a good ending, right? Black hole swallows the world, swallows the town, vice versa. You know, it definitely fits the tone of the whole Lovecraftian ethos. But that sheer audacity of the ending he ended up coming up with, it's a million times better. I mean, when I watched that film, I watched it a few weeks back, and I was literally looking around to just tell people how fucking awesome I thought the end was when I'd finished watching it, because it just was that good.
Yeah, the scripted version that I mentioned, it's a lot more ambiguous, the ending, to what we get. I feel like our ending's quite obvious, that
definite,
what's left. That's it. It's definite. You know that he's his realization that he is this character in a book, and that his choices that in his life is just pretty much being written for him, and that he's meaningless, which is what we're talking about, which Adam would probably, from what Adam's been saying, is probably existential horror and not cosmic horror.
Yeah, right. So in a way, there's definitely existential horror there, but the fact that the very fabric of everything is being torn and it's all coming to an end is definitely cosmic, right? So in a way, it's kind of touching everything. I mean, what I like about the film is almost his references. I mean, like, you know, the book, was it Hobbs End? What's the book he's writing? One of the books he's writing.
Horror at Hobbs End is one of the books. Yeah.
Right. So I think a lot of those kind of. I think also there's a lot of references in the film about all the other books that he's written. They are very, very, very close to Lovecraft.
There's full on quotes from Lovecraft. Yeah. So when he's Sam Neill's, I've forgotten the character's name, is referencing like Trent. Thank you. Is referencing like quotes from it's from Sutter Kane's books, the Lovecraftian quotes.
Oh, right, okay, because obviously, that's it. So you've got the Hobbs End horror, but obviously that's almost referencing the Dunwich horror, which is one of Lovecraftian. So I think all the titles, I mean, there's another one, like The Whisper of the Dark, is obviously The Whisper in Darkness, which is one of Lovecraft.
They're all slight little alterations, aren't they, on the existing text?
Like the woman that's setting in the B&B that he goes to, her name is a character or is a town in a book that's Lovecraftian. There's loads of these little references dotted about.
Yeah, because like Arkham, and no doubt there's an Arkham reference in Mouth of Madness. It has to be, probably.
I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't actually a very big success at the time it came out in '94, and you know, it barely made back its budget. And ironically, many of the negative reviews of it said, "Oh, the film was too confusing and hard to follow." Well, for me personally, that's what made the film brilliant. Now, it was a clever script and a story that sold me on it, and it raised it above that kind of 90s cheesy horror vibe that the film did have at a couple of points. But like you say, the film's kind of been reappraised in recent years, and it is definitely, you can be viewed as a cult hit now. I mean, David, one of your favourite horror directors, Ari Aster, literally said it's one of his favourite films.
I mean, I just think it has that typical Carpenter pace. You know, it has that kind of Carpenter feel to it, and which is, I don't know, somewhat comforting in a way. You know, if you look at any of his other films, you know, The Thing, They Live, Prince of Darkness, they all have a very specific pace. And I don't know whether or not it's his soundtrack, his kind of 80s synth soundtracks that go with it.
Well, it's kind of that heavy metal soundtrack at the start, like, completely threw me. At the start of the film, I was like, what the hell am I watching here?
When the book's being published.
Almost mechanical, yeah. It was just like, it completely threw me off because I wasn't expecting that to start it off with. It almost sounded like 80s, not like 90s as well when I heard that. I'll tell you one thing though, I reckon this is the type of horror film that is ripe for a remake. I mean, I think the concept of fandom driving people insane is easily more prevalent now in the internet age than it was back in the early 90s with the print medium. I mean, this is a film that predicted fan outrage on social media, but then also melded it seamlessly with the work of Lovecraft. So if you take the basic tenets of the story and do it as a modern thing over social media, I mean, you got a hit right there. I mean, I'm pretty sure we should just go and write that right now, to be honest.
Yeah, but there's stuff... When people mention making remakes or something, I never like, oh yeah, let's do that, because I don't know, I never really want a remake. But going back to what you mentioned.
Well, you'd be adapting it, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be exact. You're changing the medium of what you're keeping the basic story elements, but you're updating. See, as good as it is, it does look dated in some ways, all right? And you can clearly see where the budget reduced has been. Okay, say Ari Aster wanted to do a remake of it, David. You're telling me you wouldn't want to watch that?
Oh no, I would. I would want to watch it, but I don't know if I'd want it based in modern day.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd want it based in modern day with like the internet age or having Twitter.
I think
posts.
that's the natural thing for me.
If you almost take the Mouth of Madness and you almost merge it with like American Psycho styling, of this like almost 80s kind of really like crushed 80s style, I think that would be pretty amazing.
Yeah,
that would be pretty cool. But also, like, you watch Mouth of Madness, and I really enjoy it because, again, it's done in that Carpenter style. If you'd done it and it wasn't with his style, would it still make a great film? I think it would, really. But
yeah, because I think the basic story is so strong. Although, when I was doing my research, I read that the writer of the film, Michael DeLuca, that although it's obviously heavily skewed towards Lovecraft, apparently one of his ideas for the plot was that his initial idea was a story of L. Ron Hubbard's founding of Scientology and what would happen when an author wielded that much influence over his audience, and where you could take that to the most horrific conclusion, and that was kind of partly what informed his script as well. I think we also have to talk briefly about the special effects in it, because, I mean, you definitely got hints of Hellraiser, Videodrome, Nightmare on Elm Street in there. I mean, that standout Spiderwalk scene, it definitely brings to mind The Thing and The Exorcist. And, I mean, it's no surprise that the special effects were done by Robert Kurtzman, Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger, who are all just, icons on the industry.
Well, that's another theme that sort of comes up a lot, and feel free to argue with me against this, because I'm not sure, is the sort of invasion of flesh in cosmic horror, and in existential horror, that tearing of flesh and remoulding of it,
or almost beyond flesh.
What a human body should be capable of.
Or this idea of like once the flesh is gone, it's just your shell. And once it's gone, that's totally. I think that's a really great point.
No, I think you're spot on there with almost all the films we're going to be talking about today. That has definitely affected. I mean, you can argue most of it. If you take David's sort of jumping off point as the flesh being contorted and twisted into something new, that is most of Cronenberg's work. To be fair.
Yeah, true. Well, actually, I mean, if we're talking also about existential horror, you've also got how do you pronounce it?
Existence.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Existence, yeah.
Yeah.
Just with a Z on the end to make it more street and hip.
Yeah. But yeah, so in a way, that is kind of existential horror, right? So it definitely touches on Lovecraftian style, I think.
Anyone else got anything else to say about Mouth of Madness, or is it time to move on to our next film?
I don't have anything to say about Mouth of Madness, but I wanted to ask a question on cosmic horror in general.
Okay.
Can cosmic horror not be Lovecraftian? So can it step away from Lovecraft's work and almost the shadow he casts over it?
Easily.
And everything that he's done, and be...
I guess you might have to always cite or reference Lovecraft as like the father of cosmic horror, but I don't, so he may have started the genre, but I don't think he I mean, if you take, what's the film you guys, what's the film you watched last night, or the other film, what's the one you watched last night? I can't remember.
Event Horizon?
Event Horizon. If you take Event Horizon, that is, I guess, a cosmic horror, but I wouldn't have said it was Lovecraftian. Yeah. So no, I think.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Is it kind of like how, to put it into perspective, maybe different words, like how Tolkien's the daddy of fantasy?
Yeah.
But, we've stepped far out of what Tolkien did with fantasy. And
totally, yeah. Well, I mean, also, you could turn around and say, right, okay, let's make a vampire film, but, are you going to immediately talk about Bram Stoker or, George Romero, if you're doing a zombie film? There's loads of zombie films over there, but you don't necessarily say, it's very of that genre. So, I don't know.
So there's room to breathe outside of what Lovecraft created.
I mean, David, I could argue, right, that Avengers Infinity War is cosmic horror. I mean, he even says, "I'm inevitable," and he wipes out half of the universe. And like and again, you've got all these multi-stories spanning all these different dimensions and worlds and that, and suddenly, so yeah, I mean, there you go, one of the most successful films of all time, financially and critically, and one of the most biggest popcorn films of all time, technically has all those tenets of cosmic horror. It's not a horror film per se; it's more an action adventure film, comic book film. But you've got one guy who's wanting to just wipe out half of existence. So you can't get much, can't get much more. I suppose proper cosmic horror, it wipes out all existence. But at least Thanos was trying.
I mean, I'm just wondering if there's a film that touches on the cosmic but isn't necessarily a horror. So I guess that would definitely tick one of the boxes, for sure.
Oh, there was a film on Netflix I saw recently called The Block Island Sound, which kind of that was a low budget indie horror film. And it was kind of set in that New Englandish area, I think. And it had, people losing time, like strange noises in a small community. And this overwhelming sense of dread and madness, like, taking over the characters. And, spoiler towards the end of the film, there's like an alien thing in it, but towards the end. But that's very like short near the end of the film. The whole other time you're watching this mystery going, well, what's causing this? Why is stuff mutating? And I was really impressed by that. It's a little low budget film, but really good acting in it. I think it was by the McManus brothers wrote and directed that one, if I remember rightly. But yeah, I was a big. That's definitely worth checking out.
All right. Well, I mean, there's also films like I go to things like The Devil's Candy, which is it's an amazing film. That's really that could be up there, one of my favourites actually. But it's like the absolute descent into madness that kind of that goes from one character to another. That's really interesting. So it has. I don't know about cosmic, but it definitely has an existential feel. Has any of you seen that one?
I haven't.
No. But what you just described does describe another Netflix film I just seen recently called, although I wasn't a fan of it, and it was called She Dies Tomorrow.
Right, okay, no, I haven't seen it, all right.
Right, so the basic plot is this woman just wakes up and she just has this overwhelming feeling that she's going to die tomorrow. And that feeling of dread and, like, weirdness she's got about it all, when it spreads to everyone she meets. So as the film moves on, it moves to the different characters, and you see how it... and you know what? It's got the colours in it, and that infection is spread by colours that she sees. So that's very Lovecraftian.
That is very Lovecraft, yeah.
But I wasn't a fan of it, because it was just like... I was so bored watching it. I was just sitting there going, okay, so then she's going to speak to someone else, and then someone else is going to go a little bit mad. And where does it end? And I can't even remember the ending. It was that much of an ordeal to sit through.
You see,
that was shit.
Like for me, like, the end of everything, or like the complete, lack of existence, I think can sometimes touch on sort of, satanic films. I mean, there's a really good film called Southbound, which is an anthology set of films. So it's like multiple directors. But that kind of feels quite cosmic-y in a way, because I think if I remember correctly, it starts and they're travelling and they're trying to get out of this area and in the desert, but they can't. They keep driving. They keep going past the same things. Very much like In the Mouth of Madness, like that scene where he's driving and they just keep driving past the same things. Exactly. They're kind of stuck in this one area. And in a way, it's almost like, like the film Lighthouse, where which is also a bit like, I mean, what I get from that he's kind of stuck in purgatory. So this idea that he's stuck in purgatory, or in Southbound, they're stuck in hell, or, in all of these films, there is a hellish thing, because they don't know where they're going to go. They don't know what hell is really like. When they get there, is hell just a place where you're trapped? And so check out Southbound. That's really good. That's a brilliant film. But also I watched it around the same time as The Void, so maybe I'm kind of a little bit skewed by watching a very, very cosmic horror and then watching Southbound and finding sort of similarities. So I'm not sure. I'd have to do a bit of research on that.
Thankfully, you've segued away perfectly into the next film I wanted to talk about, which with that idea of hell, which is Event Horzion, which is Paul W.S. Anderson, not the other Paul Anderson. I mean, Event Horzion crossed with Magnolia would also be a bizarre film. There was a rain of... Although, having said that, a rain of frogs and people singing would make Event Horizon a lot more horrific. But yeah, so from 1997, once again, we seem to be noticing a pattern here that we have Sam Neill, this time playing a man of science, looking for his wife who went missing on a deep space research ship, Event Horizon, that has now magically reappeared after being missing for years. And what follows is essentially a haunted house in space film, where all the characters are driven crazy on board the Event Horizon, just like the previous crew were. I mean, the gore in this film, in an early cut, was apparently so gruesome that people were passing out and being sick. And you have got this Lovecraftian idea of the unexplainable beyond, of where this ship has been, that drives the mystery of the film. And it's heavily implied this ship has been to some kind of hell dimension and brought back its demonic forces with it. Of course, you've got Sam Neill also saying one of the best lines in all the cinema, where we're going, we don't need eyes. It's easily the best film that Paul W.S. Anderson has ever directed. I mean, since his 8 or 9 million shitty Resident Evil films, he just seems to make the same film over and over again. And ironically, in a Screen Rant interview last October, Anderson was asked about making a sequel to Event Horizon, and he said he wasn't interested. And part of me wonders if it's purely because this is the only film of his that is widely loved by fans, and and a little bit of Mortal Kombat 2, I suppose.
Yeah. Did you say sequel or prequel? Because a prequel would be pretty sweet.
There was a sequel, but we are going to be getting some kind of new Event Horizon content because Amazon are planning a TV adaptation of it. Now, that could be brilliant if it's given to the right team behind it. I mean, yeah, do you know what I'd love? I was thinking about this a little bit, and the TV potential of Event Horizon is brilliant. Now, I'd love to do it set across 2 or 3 different timelines. So you have, I mean, it's whether you can get Sam Neill back for it as well. But you could have it as a prequel where he's designing the original ship. Then you see what happens to the original ship. Then you could see side scenes that were happening alternately during the film. And then you could also have, because obviously they go to rescue them from the Event Horizon again at the end of the film. So you could even have Sam Neill come back as Dr. Weir. But there's so many ways you could go in it. And I think that slow burn dread of Event Horizon would work so much better over 9 or 10 episodes. What about Mike Flanagan doing something like this? That would be awesome. I know he's not done sci-fi yet, but he's a master of horror at the minute. So I really can't wait.
And I'll watch it.
Did you say that man can touch anything or watch it make anything?
I said he can touch anything, and I'll watch it.
Okay,
including on myself.
Okay, and we went there, didn't we?
It's going to be that kind of podcast.
One other little amusing fact I noticed, because I was rewatching Event Horizon myself again the other night, and the editor is called Martin Hunter, which literally just made me think of Martian Manhunter. Okay, I guess I was a bit more amused at that by everyone else.
Tumbleweeds.
On your own then.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else got anything to chip in with on Event Horizon?
I mean, I did a little bit of research, and I was trying to. I mean, obviously, it is like a cosmic horror, totally. But I just wondered if he started it off to try and be a cosmic horror. And I did a bit of research and just some fact finding, and obviously, like the little touches that he talks about, trying to turn, it into a gothic horror, and the kind of architecture of the room where what's the machine that takes them there? What's the actual machine in the ship? The sphere that spins. Yeah. So if you look around,
we'll just call it the sphere.
Yeah, the sphere. Yeah, exactly. The FTL sphere, or whatever you might want to call it. That, and they were saying about how he wanted to build it in a very gothic horror way. This kind of I think he used aspects of like Notre Dame Tower to build this kind of aesthetic, and I think that's very, very, very Lovecraftian, really, when you think about just the styling of it.
Well, I mean, what's funny is in a lot of Lovecraftian stuff, it's people being changed by the thing. And in this one, you've almost like to say the ship's alive. Well, you've got a sentient ship. So that was quite original in the sort of these type of films. And I mean, it's just visually it's stunning, isn't it? I mean, some of the effects do look a bit dated now, but again, for a relatively low budget it had in the time, and it only be Anderson's, I think, second or third film. It just holds up so well.
The visuals were horrific. Even now, some of the stuff that you saw. But the what I like about it, and that I'd be worried about if they did go into it with a TV, is that they'd start explaining more about what the unexplained is. Because the second you start explaining the unexplained, it doesn't become frightening anymore, because you've given it a presence. You know, you've given it a face, you've given it a meaning, an explanation, and then you've lost that impact. So, for instance, with how the ship, you know, it went to this other dimension, it come back and it's sentient. We don't know what happened over there or how that became.
But don't you want to?
I don't want to know, because
I do.
Because the second you find out, it's not scary.
Well, unless it's done really well. Do you see, David?
True,
Do
true.
you see?
You know, because like for me, like it's a bit like, I don't know. I kind of watch Event Horizon. I always almost think of like Doom, in a way. That
very similar.
Like, totally. Like, you know, obviously they've gone to Mars. I think it is Mars, isn't it? And they open this kind of hell, you know, parallel sort of hell dimension and stuff like that. And I kind of see connections from there as well. And also like just like connection of cosmic horror. You know, was it Jolie Richardson who was in it?
And Colour Out of Space.
Exactly, yeah. So there's a bit of a cosmic Kevin Bacon game going on there.
Well, you notice there's a lot of the actors. I mean, Sam Neill, just, you know, is in a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, the man himself, Mr Nicolas Cage, pops up in quite a few of them. I mean, Nicolas Cage at this point is his own subgenre.
It's just become his own thing.
Yeah, if ever you do one on Nicolas Cage as a subgenre and you need a guest,
I think we might have to do a Nicolas Cage special at some point, because...
please. Can we do it on his birthday?
When's that?
I don't know. I'll find out. Hang on.
Cage Day.
Yeah, National Cage Day. Yeah.
Only if we can play the GIF at the start from Saturday Night Live, where Andy Samberg does Get in the Cage and interviews guests in the style of Nicolas Cage, and then Nicolas Cage appears on it himself. That's high praise.
Oh, here we go. 7th of January. We got a bit of time to.
We got a bit of time to plan. Perfect.
Yeah.
Right. So up next, we're going to talk about Adam's mainly going to talk about The Void. So this was 2016, directed by Jeremy Gillespie and Stephen Konstanski. Now, this is a more recent film that pays homage to the classics of the 1980s in story, effects and aesthetic. It's a very simple story which involves a group of people who become trapped in a hospital by hooded cultists and otherworldly creatures. We also have them turning into tentacled beasts and a crazed doctor trying to defy death.
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah. What a film! It's such a great film. It really is. I mean, you know, what can be said about it? Really,
What makes it a cosmic horror? What is it? Because I haven't seen it, and I don't think.
Tentacles.
Okay. So I think like the cult element, you know, the cultist element of it. So again, like the idea that you've got a cult and they're so infatuated by whatever the cult stands for that they'll do anything. I mean, I find that probably one of the most scariest things. It's like, you know, that's why I really, really enjoy a good Satan film, because if you kind of get a Satanist, and I think there was a scene in, I'm trying to, what's the Johnny Depp film about the books? Johnny Depp and the Satan film. Oh, do you know what I mean?
Is it a Polanski one, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, it's gone. It's the ninth something.
The Ninth Gate, right. So yeah. So there's a scene in the Ninth Gate where he basically goes up to this guy and I think he calls him out as like a Satanist or whatever, and he just says, "Yep," and he just immediately pours fuel on himself, sets himself alight, and he'll do that an absolutely like blink of an eye. I'll just go bang, and he's just someone who's infatuated with something, has no fear, utter faith in Satan, and just burns himself, and that's it. And to me, that's almost the scariest thing. It's like that. And I think you kind of have that element in The Void. You've got the cult, and they're just so driven, they'll just put themselves in front of any danger for their cause. And I think that just makes it quite scary for me. You know, the idea that somebody will just do that. There's that. I just, you know, it's got so many Hellraiser touches on it.
Are these people, are they brainwashed, or are they
just followers?
That's just it. They've got this. They're like, it's almost religion to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But more than religion, because you're willing to literally die on the cross or whatever.
Exactly that. Suffer, you know, unnameable suffers in the name of what they believe. And, you know, I find that almost as scary as any film. You know, for me, The Void is as if Hellraiser and The Thing had a beautiful baby. A beautiful, beautiful baby. That's, to me, summarises what The Void is about. That's exactly what it is.
And David, I believe you had a point you'd taken from.
Oh yeah, well, I haven't seen The Void, but when I watched the trailer for it, I just scrolled through the comments section.
Never scroll through the comments, David. Never.
The most popular YouTube comment did make me chuckle. They were saying that if you think of the logistics that the cult's got to go through, they've got to go and get to the same wardrobe, they've got to have a designer, they've got to get the design of everything done properly.
I just go straight to the imagination of like some guy turns up and some bloke turns him away because, mate, it's the wrong colour and the angles on the triangle are completely wrong. It doesn't fit with our brand. I'm sorry, you clearly didn't get the memo.
Have you seen? Oh God, what is it? Tarantino film with with all the KKK and when they all turn up and they're like, who cut holes in the KKK, that scene? Django Unchained, and they were like, who cut holes, and there's that whole dialogue scene. That's so funny.
Yeah. Essentially, like some kind of brand guidelines for any kind of enemy that you can think of in any film. I'd like to see the brand guidelines for them. Maybe that's something we can do. We can start thinking up brand guidelines.
Right, so on to our next film, and it's a twofer because it once again stars the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Nicolas Cage. First up, we got Panos Cosmatos' Mandy. Now, while not a literal adaptation like Colour Out of Space, Mandy shares much of its visual iconography with Lovecraft. Emerald crystals are mentioned, with emerald being a Lovecraftian colour signifier. Indeed, the film's climax takes place in the mountains. And of course, you've got Jeremiah being the character who has been touched by the other, who believes he's doing the other's will. And obviously, one of Cage's last lines, "I'm your god now," which, also a brilliant Machine Head song. So, you want to take this one away for us, Adam?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a film of two halves. One half I just find it quite boring and a bit rubbish, and then the second half is, for me, completely and utterly thoroughly enjoyable. And it's the sort of thing I can pull out on Blu-ray, put on, and just skip straight into the middle, because that's, for me, when it all starts.
I think for me it all starts when you see Nicolas Cage having his breakdown, screaming in his underwear, drinking vodka. That's kind of like, okay, this is where it's going to get good. This is peak Cage.
I just think that's Nicolas Cage on a Wednesday. I think that's probably...
Yeah, I mean, that's probably just an outtake, right? It was like, they probably just left the camera running. Holy shit, look what we got. Yeah, put it in a film. You okay with this, Nick? Yeah, cool, whatever, guys.
Yeah, totally. That's the maniacal Cage. Not the bees!
Do you know what? I've never watched that because I like the original so much, and I just can't bring myself to watch it.
I think it's worth watching.
Doesn't he punch a bunch of women in the face as well?
Yeah. I do. I think it has its merits. I think it's not as bad as everyone says it is. I mean, Wicker, the Wicker Man. Actually, that could be one of my favourites.
He's just coming up with all these horror films.
Don't ask me what's my favourite. I mean, the thing. Actually, I might go Wicker Man. What film was we talking about?
Mandy.
Oh yeah, Mandy. Yeah. No, I think it's brilliant. It is. The second half for me is it is a little bit style over substance. That's the only thing I can really find about it. It kind of reminds me of like the Neon Demon.
Oh yeah, Nicholas Refn. Yeah.
Yeah. Or what does he refer to himself? He's basically initialised his name, hasn't he?
Has he?
Yeah.
Would it be NWR?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's easier to pronounce.
If you read the sleeve notes on the Blu-ray of Neon Demon, that's what he's basically. It says his name and then in brackets NWR or whatever it is. But no, I kind of see quite a lot of connections because to me it's just a film with style over substance. It's great.
Do you know what? I'm gonna have to give it a rewatch because I fell asleep when I first watched it, and I don't think I got into the really crazy bits which you been mentioning. So yeah, I definitely need to go back to that.
I think that says as much about the beginning of that film as Adam did saying he didn't enjoy it. Falling asleep during it.
Oh, I mean, there's other reasons.
I fall asleep on a lot of stuff. It's not necessarily because it's bad. It's just because I'm tired and it's late.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the film you want to watch on a bag of mushrooms. I can say that. But it's I mean, you know, going back to the whole style over substance thing, I think it is an amazing style. It is beautiful, really. I just didn't enjoy it until it kicked off.
Right, so moving on from Mandy, the second in our Nicolas Cage cosmic horror buffet, not quite the word I was looking for, but it'll do, is Richard Stanley's Colour Out of Space, starring Nicolas Cage and Jolie Richardson. Again, another seemingly familiar character actor that we keep getting in these type of films. And this is about a meteorite that has an apocalyptic impact on Nicolas Cage's family and maybe the world. As the film progresses, the weird light that emanates from the meteorite infects the ground first, and then everyone who comes into contact with it. And holy fuck is this film weird and dark. I mean, Jesus Christ, when Jack and Teresa get fused together, that is just pretty hardcore, man. I totally had, like, flashbacks to The Thing with that, man. That was, horrific.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. Have you seen it?
I haven't, no. But again, is that invasion of the flesh again, and like moulding of the flesh?
100% in this one.
Yeah, it's almost like have you seen the film Society, the horror film Society?
No.
That's the super body horror where all flesh merges and they kind of become. It's a film almost like about elitism, really. But it's like they kind of touch each other and their fingers blend into all their body, and next thing you know, they're this hulking mass of human flesh and bones.
Akira.
Yeah, right.
Jeanette-less blob of orgy, if I remember rightly.
He's so like sweaty and greasy. You can just imagine the smell. It just smells like beef.
So does Colour Out of Space have that sort of destruction of what makes you human?
Yeah, right. So, because I can't. You're gonna have to remind me because I have seen it, Neil. But you're gonna have to remind me. So there's a bit where the mum and the son they're merged together as one kind of alien form.
Yeah, and like the sun stuck out.
How does it happen?
I think it's the light. It's the light just does it. There's a flash of light, and I think when they come and they find her in the barn, and it's a light. Every time something horrific happens in this film, it's because of this light, this like emerald light that starts emanating throughout the earth, and that's why like it's got quite a bit more of the nature first. Like there's a whole subplot about the water supply in the town being not good to drink and being infected, and that was before the fucking meteorite hit the place. But I mean, nature itself begins to attack. You know, there's the sheriff gets taken out by a fucking gets taken out by a tree at one point. I mean, luckily it doesn't go full Evil Dead on the sheriff, thankfully, but it's still not very pleasant. But
that whole nature thing. I mean, that's almost like essentially where Annihilation goes, isn't it?
And that's what we're going to be talking about next. That's the next film. I got it queued up perfectly there. Annihilation will be the next film we talk about, yeah, because it feels like a companion piece to Colour Out of Space. I mean, it's definitely not a good film to be an alpaca. I'll say that much.
Talk to me about the representation of colour in Colour Out of Space, then. And
well, it's out of space.
Well, yeah.
Talk to me about what colour means and represents in the film. So so am I right in saying that this colour isn't a colour that's human? It's not a worldly colour.
Yeah. In fact, Nicolas Cage in the film he basically says something about the colour, and someone says to I think the police officer says what colour, and I think his response is like I can't tell you. It was just a colour. It was all colours. It was almost like this undescribable colour that hasn't been created yet. And I don't know. Has anyone actually read the Lovecraft book, Colour Out of Space? Because I'd be interested to see his explanation of what he's saying the colour was.
I've got it.
Of course you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at the big brain on David.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I've got all the books. I just don't read them because I like to look intelligent.
Yeah, this is very much a coffee table book.
Yeah, which is why I wear glasses because I look intelligent, but I'm not. But yeah, So I think the colour. I mean, that's a good point. What does it refer to? What could it refer to?
Well, it's the other, isn't it? It's that the colour is the main representation of this infection that's going to spread and mutate everyone throughout the whole little Nicolas Cage's family first, and then the wider area.
I find it interesting. It's so visually beautiful,
yeah,
but so dangerous and horrible. You know, it's like nature in a way. I kind of see references of nature. And I know we talk about nature, but
Do you actually see the colour in the film? Do they show, or is it all just described to you what it is?
Oh no, you see it, and it's that kind of emeraldy.
Purple. It's very heavy purple, isn't it? And
That's it. Well, I mean, it changes. Is it always purple, or does it change colours at certain points?
well, I mean, how do you show a colour that can't
Doesn't
be
exist.
explained? Yeah, and I think Annihilation does it by explaining it as a shimmer. This kind of spectrumy, prismatic kind of, trippy. It was almost something like only the mind can see, but there are no words for.
It's like when you have a bubble, isn't it? And you've got all the colours of a bubble.
Yeah, this kind of oil slick that has every spectrum of every colour. But in a way, if we're talking about a colour that we know, he's more talking about a colour that can't be explained. And so I don't know, it's weird.
So again, is it one of those examples of where it might have been better not seeing the colour?
Oh no, I don't think in this film, the film's called The Colour Out of Space. You have to show the colour because otherwise you just have lots of reaction shots of people pretending they've seen something.
So yeah, it's a little bit like Bird Box, where you see like this invisible foe, but you see the person's reaction to it, but you never see the actual creature.
Yeah, you see drawings of it, don't you?
Yeah.
It's all drawings of these dark shapes that you never see it.
Yeah, or that scene where he holds the person's eyes open and their eyes change because they're like, oh my god, the shock.
There's that shot of Sarah Paulson, isn't it, when she's driving and she sees it and her eyes go brown or whatever.
Yeah,
and
they go really gnarly.
You've seen something that's so visually horrific that it drives you insane immediately.
Yeah, so I mean that is
you
a
can't
way.
visualise it.
No, exactly. That's like a way of showing the showing what can happen if you see something that no one else can see. So I thought that was really interesting. Plus, also they say Bird Box is a bit of a cosmic horror as well, but I see that as more of an existential horror, right? Maybe, I don't know.
It's apocalyptic, but but like you said, you saw cosmic horrors. We were speaking before, and it's apocalyptic, but there's hope at the end of it. There's hope at the end of some of these films, but it's just bleak. There is no hope.
It's just gnarly.
You're so
radical.
You're so helpless that there is no hope at the end of these films.
Here's something I thought was quite interesting, because Neil, you said like The Mist, and also it is widely recognised as a cosmic horror, right? The Mist.
Oh yeah.
But at the end, where he shot everybody in the car and he's about to shoot himself.
Murder his son.
Yeah, absolutely, nice one. There's like there's hope because a truck goes past holding.
And you see the mist beginning to clear, yeah.
Totally, yeah, and then you see people fighting back, and then there's a chance of hope. So to me, I don't see that as a cosmic horror. I mean, yeah, it is, because in a way that huge sort of gargantuan beast with all the tentacles and stuff, that is straight out of Lovecraft.
And it would have been a positive ending. Yeah, it would have been a hopeful ending if he hadn't just killed his son and all the other survivors. And that's the gut punch of it. That's the holy fuck moment. I think that, let's move on to Annihilation then. So that from Alec Garlands in 2018. And I mean, this just feels like back to back with Colour Out of Space. It literally just feels like a similar version, much more better produced, with a lot more money, and as visually stunning as Colour Out of Space with. Garland's Annihilation looks absolutely amazing. And stay with me if this sounds a bit familiar. An asteroid hits, and this alien meteorite begins to warp and mutate the local landscape with a weird colour, and it's called the shimmer, that slowly begins to work its way outwards. So you kind of have this slow impending dread from the get-go. And of course, right at the very start of the film, we meet Natalie Portman's character, and her husband, Oscar Isaac, was one of the original soldiers, and he emerges from the shimmer. And again, no one's emerged from the shimmer before, and he's a bit catatonic at this point. And then missions launch with her and her team to go in and again see if they can find out what's causing the shimmer and determine, is it dangerous. And you know what? I can't honestly remember too much at the end of the film when I was thinking about this, except for it goes 2001 in a big way, man. I mean, I had no idea what the hell was going on. Apparently, and this is from having to Wikipedia it, she stops the shimmer by destroying it, and yet in the debrief at the end of the film, we walk back to the start again, and we don't walk back to the start, and then at the end of the film, we see her husband who's finally starting to come to, and they have this little conversation, and both their eyes shimmer. So it's implied that this infection has passed on to both of them, and that it's going to carry on. But I mean, visually breathtaking, and a largely almost all-female cast for most of the film. What do you guys think of Annihilation?
I think it's brilliant. I mean, I think he's brilliant. For me, it was a bit like if you was to watch Annihilation and The Colour Out of Space, it's almost like watching some sort of origin story in a way.
Yeah, Colour Out of Space first, and then on to a few months later is Annihilation.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like what's happening somewhere else in the world at the same time. I just think it's brilliant. Really, really great film. And in fact, the Nerdist called it the peak of cosmic horror. Apparently, I didn't know this, but what's her name? Who starred in it?
Natalie Portman.
Natalie Portman. She said she would never do a horror, so she broke her rule for this, didn't she? I was just reading.
What was her thing against horrors?
It's too scary.
She didn't like it.
Yeah.
No.
What do you think it was the typical kind of female role you get given in a horror film? And then, oh no, by the way, you're going to be an army captain who's going to go out and you're the lead character and the rest of your team are female in it. Do you know what, though? It's based on a series of books, isn't it? Annihilation. It's called the Southern Reach Trilogy. And unfortunately, it didn't actually do that well.
I know that Garland finished the script before the books were finished. I know that.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so there could be a lot of differences between the things then. But no, apparently the film barely made its budget back after a brief cinema run, and then it actually ended up getting sold to Netflix. So it was one of Netflix's first really sort of big, massive films they acquired. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, like we said, Annihilation is such a sister film to Colour Out of Space. Next, because I'm going to quickly move on to another film, which a lot of the stuff we've been talking about so far has been, quite dramatic and dark and not fun. So here's a cosmic horror film that's a comedy horror film. 2011, directed by Drew Goddard, Cabin in the Woods. Absolutely love Cabin in the Woods, man.
Yeah.
It is phenomenal.
What a blend of genres. I mean, in this film, we find essentially there is a worldwide organisation that regularly makes human sacrifices to appease the Ancient Ones. And of course, the Ancient Ones central being to Lovecraft's work. We get a great link with Sigourney Weaver playing the director who's in charge of making sure that all these people die. And the central plot being that when the current group of characters realise something's wrong, they endanger the whole operation when they try to escape from the setup. A few little points from this. You got an amazing early frat boy death for Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth. You got David's most hated actor from Godzilla King of Monsters, the amazing Bradley Whitford. He gets mermanned. I bet you enjoyed that, didn't you, David? Why do you hate Bradley Whitford so much? What was wrong with him?
No, it was just in Godzilla. It was just in that film. But no, his obsession with the mer people, like, they're so close to getting them now. I love how that film is more of a comedy than it is a horror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but that's Whedon, though, isn't it? I think he had a massive influence on it. Joss Whedon. You could tell, really.
Is the ending where they're just having a fag and just like watching the end of the world?
Yeah.
Just like, yeah.
Yeah, because the last two surviving characters, they're supposed to kill one or the other, and they won't do it. So that apparently pisses off the old ones who came forth and will destroy everything in sight. And the last shot is a giant hand emerging from the ground and just destroying everything.
Yeah, it makes you think, if you're one of the old ones, would human sacrifice appease you? I don't know. What is human sacrifice? Why is human sacrifice always used?
You see, this is it. I've always seen this. Like, if you sort of chain some virgin up against the rocks for like this huge kind of beast to come. To me, it's just like,
hypothetically speaking, of course.
Yeah, it's true. To me, it'd just be like me eating a Tic Tac, and that's not going to appease me.
If you've got all this power, why is one little sacrifice going to, keep you from basically dominating existence.
Exactly, a snack isn't
Yeah.
going to help me out.
It's like having a mini pepperami, isn't it? When you're like expecting a steak dinner.
Yeah, totally. In fact, it's not even a mini pepperami. It's like somebody sharing a mini pepperami with you. You know, surely you'd want a decent meal, like just tuck into the village.
I mean, yeah, and if we dive too much into the plot specifics of Cabin in the Woods, I mean, you see they've got the monitors up and they're doing the same thing all over the world. So how does just one of them not working properly? I mean, that's one thing that I read that was really funny, that every country scenarios will be based on the typical horror genre of that country. So you see the one in Japan and it's all like, you know, like Ringo.
Yeah, or like, what do you call it? Like, almost like Battle Royale type
Yeah.
style, which is phenomenal.
Cabin in the Woods is another one of those films where if you look at the logistics of it all and everything that goes on behind the scenes to have made that, I think, like, were all the monsters just like chilling about and then they all put them in little glass cases to keep them?
But actually, talking of that, I mean, in a way, to me, that is a film about the kind of production values of what you would have to do. You know, you'd have all these siloed sort of areas and like massive production rooms with like screens, everyone talking to each other. You know, you can imagine a brand guideline for this. You know, these guys turn up and there's like, you know, some sort of initiation, like you know, like, okay, can you write down your national insurance number, your next of kin? You know, it's that element of like, you work here.
These people would be not like recruited; they'd be bred for recruitment. You know,
Yeah.
not recruited from the outside, just bred from the inside.
Yeah.
And that's all they know. That's their existence.
Now I want cheese on toast because you said bread.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, let's move on to Lighthouse. So, from only a couple of years ago, black and white Academy ratio by Robert Eggers, his second film after The Witch, which also was quite highly lauded when it came out. Lauded. But yeah, it's generally considered to be a modern classic, and it's a tale of two lighthouse keepers, played by Robert Pattinson and William Dafoe, who were constantly drunk in 1890s New England. And I mean, the film definitely ticks all the Lovecraft boxes: New England location, slow descent into madness, and tentacled abominations hidden within a powerful light. Do you know what? This is one of those films, though, that when I initially watched it, I couldn't tell whether it was brilliant or terrible, and I'm still not 100% sure the either way. The cinematography and acting are all superb, but I mean, the editing, I think, is what really takes this up a level, because the way it's cut, the film is edited in a way that makes the viewer just as discombobulated as the main characters. And again, it's that theme of the unknowable that is the most terrifying in it. I mean,
it's almost like cosmic purgatory, isn't it? I mean, I must admit, it took me two viewings of it.
It's not an easy watch, is it?
No, it took me a couple of goes to get into it. I just didn't. It didn't gel with me straight away. I think everyone was saying, "Oh, it's such a great film," and I watched it and I was like, I didn't get it, and I did have to go back, and then I got it, and then I'm like, it is a great film. But I think you have to be in a certain type of mood to watch it.
Second viewing, after you've watched it the first time, where you're like, what the fuck's going on?
Totally.
Second time, you're like, oh, okay, you start seeing everything.
Yeah.
This is what David keeps doing with trying to force me to watch Nomadland.
Well, yeah, I mean, I found that a struggle. My wife loved it, but I found it a struggle, but, you know. But going back to Lighthouse, I mean, the performances, I think for me, it was the performances just blew me away. They're just such great, I mean, you know, Patterson is just
revitalised his
phenomenal.
career with it, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, that you can argue that obviously it's very Lovecraftian, but it's not actually based on a Lovecraft thing, isn't it? It's more based in, I mean, the director Eggers, he bases all. Well, do you know what? No, the more I think about it, I was about to say Eggers based his previous film, The Witch, in like 1890s New England, and then his next film was set in New England. But then clearly he might have just been influenced by Lovecraft and his original script writing ideas anyway, with that setting, or Stephen King. So but I mean, I'm very interested to see what Robert Eggers does next. He's actually doing a Viking revenge saga called The Northman.
Yeah, it's got a serious cast.
Oh, man, the cast looks amazing. You've got Anya Taylor-Joy, Bjork as a character called the Slav Witch. What's his name from the show? Brilliant.
You see, like for me, The Witch is a film I really wanted to love, and it's the kind of film that on paper is a sort of film I should love, and brilliant. It just left me feeling a bit cold. I didn't.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm the same with it. I feel like when I watch Ari Aster's films, I feel like they strangle me. And when I was reading reviews for The Witch, people were feeling like they were being strangled watching it. And I didn't feel that horror and dread watching that.
You didn't feel like he was being strangled?
No, I felt like I was just watching a film which I didn't particularly enjoy that much. Maybe I need to watch it again to really get what people were on about with him. But yeah, Vegas, I'm not as big a fan as I am with Aster.
Yeah, no, I really want to. I really, really want to enjoy it, but I can't. I don't know why.
I think the thing with Eggers' work is it's so slow in places that, and they're such mood pieces. A perfect example is I watched The Lighthouse at home. I saw it at home, whereas I saw The Witch in the cinema. So I think you get more distracted with these type of films when you're sat at home. I think when you're in a cinema and you're just forced to watch it, there is no, you can't look at your phone. You're just there, and you get that overwhelming sense. I mean, in The Witch, the bit with Black Phillip out of nowhere, that made everyone shit their pants in the cinema. All like probably 5 of us that were in there for that film. But do you know what as well? Advanced words come out on. They've had a couple of test screenings of the Northman, Eggers' new film, and a lot of people have said it looks amazing. The fight scenes are brilliant. Alexander Skarsgård, who I was trying to think of earlier, who's a lead in it, they said he looks like an absolute beast because he got delayed because of COVID, and so he just spent the time bulking up until essentially looking like a pro wrestler for it by the time they went back to filming. But but they have said it's really slow in places, and people said, "Oh, can it just be a bit more actionier?" Well, that's not what you're going to get from a Robert Eggers film, I don't think. So it'll be interesting to see on that one. And I think I've gone a little bit off a topic there. So to throw us back, when I was researching Cosmic Horror, one of the things that I disqualified actually from being on was Evil Dead, Sam Raimi's 1981 classic. Having said that, I was like, well, they're Deadites, they're possessed demon-type characters. They're not really... And then I was like, do you know what? I've reappraised it and I was actually wrong because the book is called the fucking Necromonicon. Literally, and of course, the Necromonicon is like almost a grimoire that is featured in loads of different H.P. Lovecraft books. It's sort of like his encyclopedia of reference that him and other writers who followed in his mythos would use. So, I mean, calling your demonic book the Necromonicon that literally summons demons from another realm that are here to suck your souls, then, okay. It's not out and out cosmic horror, but it's definitely on the scale somewhere.
I think that's more of a nod to Lovecraft than necessarily making it a cosmic horror.
Yeah, but what are the demons here for? To kill everyone and take over the planet?
But see, there you go, like planet, right? So is it necessarily the cosmos? I don't know. Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah, Sam Raimi, if you're not too busy, finishing up Doctor Strange 2, in the Multiverse of Madness, which is clearly got to have some Lovecraftian shit in that, man. That's got it with that name, and it being Raimi. I'm suddenly really, really excited about Doctor Strange 2 now.
I'd tell you what, I don't think you can talk about Cosmic Horrors without talking about The Endless as well by Alan.
Are you looking at my notes? Seriously, that's literally the next film I've got.
No, I didn't know. Is it Aaron?
Benson and Moorhead, and take the lead, Adam. Off you go. No,
it's an amazing film, and it also touches on the idea of cults as well, because I think the two guys in it are they brothers in it? I can't remember.
Yeah. They're brothers who years ago escaped a UFO death cult, and then they return years later because one of them's struggling in the real world, and it's to get some clarity and closure on the events that shaped their early lives. And once they're back at the cult, they find not a lot's really changed, and everyone in the cult are actually stuck in an endless time loop that there's no escape from, and it's possible that they never even actually left themselves. So, I mean, it's just... And this was super low budget, man, and... I think it's like the second or third one of a similar series of films they've done before, and I think it's a semi-sequel to one of their previous films.
Yeah, is it connected to Resolution?
I think it might be.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen The Endless either.
Oh, yeah, it's good. It's low budget, for sure, but it is really nice. And there's also elements of like loops in it, isn't there? Like, don't they go and see a couple of guys who live out in the desert or not far from it, and they live in a hut, but they're in a time loop? Is there an element of time loop?
No, yeah, the whole film. That's what I think the whole film is. The whole film is essentially a time loop film, and that's why they get stuck in it. And it's almost even hinted at the end that they've actually been in a time loop the whole time and never really actually escaped.
Before we get into it, and I'm desperate for a week.
Right, definitely leave that in.
Please don't cut that one out.
Yeah.
Hang on one sec. Dave's back.
Yeah. Do you have a tap in there, like almost like a bidet tap coming out of the toilet?
Yeah.
To clean your bum with.
Yeah, but it's not ours. It was put in there before.
That's really cool. You should keep that.
Turn it off. No.
You don't want to eat? No.
It's cold water against your balls, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's
something makes me sound like you need to clean it again, though. Now, Adam.
I love a bidet.
Dave's essentially saying, Adam, can you use it more? Because your arse stinks.
Is it that, or has he just used it now and used it the wrong way?
He does look a bit perkier, I'll be honest. But no, I don't want to use it because it's cold water, and it'll be cold water against your testes, and that will not be... I don't like what.
That's one thing I'd love to get installed in my house.
You know what? I'm a 40-year-old man, and I've never used a bidet.
Have you not?
No.
I love it.
Talk to me about bidets. Neil, have you ever used a bidet?
No, can't say I have.
Are they warm or cold?
I think it's like lukewarm water.
Better be lukewarm, because if it's cold, I'm out of there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't imagine cold water hitting my taint.
It's no. I would go to like posh hotels, and they've always got them, and you sit on them and be like.
No, I don't know. There's something about it, but no, there's a.
It could just be me, but I thought bidets were literally just for women.
No, they're to clean your clean you off after you've done your business.
Yeah, it's all the nethers. It's all the nethers. So can I just? I really do hope that this stays in the podcast. And if it does, can I just have a little bit of backstory here? I've just moved into a new house, and the owner of the house that we've just moved in had a tap connected to the wall that goes into the cistern, and it's like a little spray. And once you've done your business, you can bring the pipe around the front or the back if you wish, have a little spray. I haven't used it. I don't intend on keeping it. I'm just saying.
You should keep it, 100%.
It's cold water against the taint. I don't want that.
I'm thinking of getting it installed at mine.
Do you want that one?
Just to have it. Or maybe.
David, I just read that a bidet apparently is great for people with arthritis or those who have trouble wiping or keeping clean.
I think it's just nice to use. Give yourself a treat every now and then.
So far off topic today.
No, not really, because existential crisis and bidets, I think there's a little bit of sinew connecting the two, personally.
Give yourself a treat every now and then, nothing's...
It's not a treat.
It is. You ain't used it. Don't knock it till you try it. There's one thing I wanted to talk about, though, with...
Is it about bidets?
No, it's to do with your...
Is it about taints?
It is not to do with taints.
Taints.
No. It's to do with how you mentioned demonic presences taking over everything. I was thinking about it from The Evil Dead. And I was like, well, would that make zombie apocalypses cosmic horror? Which they're not.
Yes, in one very specific example, I can say yes. And it was a book I mentioned on one of the previous podcasts called The Rising.
But in demonic presences taking over everything, that's very human. That's a very human hell.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's not...
So space zombies.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's space from what we know. The cosmos.
Well, yeah, what don't we know?
Exactly, and that's why I think Event Horizon touches on that, because it goes outside of space. It goes out, it goes further than the space we know, and that is it's the fear of the unknown, as Lovecraft said, right?
So, yeah, anything demonic is very human,
Totally.
and anything human and hell isn't necessarily...
But how do we know it's human?
What, hell?
Yeah.
How do we know hell is human?
Demons, essentially. Demons are...
How did demons end up on Mars in Doom?
Yeah. Again, you can say, angels and demons, they're not human.
Yeah.
Our constructs of them is because we've created the idea of them.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah.
So, it's essentially what we don't know. It is complete and utter fear of what we don't know. Quick, Neil, find a segue.
See, this would have worked because David was talking about bidets and wet water on his balls and backside, and I was going to move into, well, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. Yeah, it raided Lovecraft massively because the whole setup for the last and final season of the show was their Scooby Gang, because essentially it's a modern Buffy ripoff anyway. They were facing different eldritch terror every week. But I just, in theory, nice, and some of the monsters designs were pretty cool. But I mean, if we're going to talk TV, then you have to really talk Lovecraft Country, Lovecraft County, which blends Lovecraftian monsters with a story of race, and that also deals really well with some of the more problematic issues we have of Lovecraft's documented racism. And yet, this show managed to balance the fantastical elements of his work with a really, really strong story.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen it, and I want to. I do like it because we do talk about Lovecraft and how amazing his writing was, but he was an utter xenophobe and racist, which is not cool.
Was not the nicest of gentlemen.
No.
That sort of part of him has sort of gone brushed under the rug a bit, hasn't it?
Yeah.
With his brain. And what
yeah,
he created.
and I know that some people might turn around and go, "Oh, it was a different time. It was a different time," and it may well have been, but it still doesn't make it cool. So so I do like what they're doing with sort of Lovecraft Country, or from what I've heard. I haven't seen it yet.
They're taking the elements of it that they want and making it into something new, also addressing, the problematic issues with the source material. So, that's really cool, man. I mean, I've only seen about the first 3 or 4 of them, and I do mean to keep finishing it, but there are some awesome tentacled monsters in the woods in that film, in that show.
I mean, talking about Lovecraftian or cosmic. I mean, Stranger Things, I think, is very Lovecraftian.
Mm.
I just have to mention the last thing. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent is the name of the film. And, okay, it's been filmed, so they're editing it now, and a cash-strapped Nicolas Cage agrees to make a paid appearance at a billionaire superfan's birthday party, but is really an informant for the CIA since the billionaire fan is a drug kingpin and gets cast in a Tarantino movie. And the billionaire... So Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage, and the billionaire drug kingpin is being played by the Mandalorian himself, Pedro Pascal. It's also
What's it called?
The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent,
which is exactly what I'm about to go and wash in my bidet. So with that, I'm going to go. It's been lovely. Thank you, guys.
And if you have enjoyed that, guys, then you can give us a 5-star review on the Apple Store, and give us words of encouragement on Twitter. And with that, it's goodbye from me, and Adam's already left to go and wash his Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent in the bidet. So it just leaves you to say goodbye, David.
Goodbye, David.
We needed roads.